People believe that they're less likely than others to experience negative events and more likely to experience positive ones. This happens because our brains are naturally wired to look at the future through a hopeful lens, often ignoring realistic statistics or past experiences. Even when we see bad things happening to those around us, we frequently tell ourselves that it will not happen to us because we are special or more careful. It is called the optimism bias. Neuroscientist Tali Sharot has spent years studying this effect and discovered that it exists in about 80% of the population. In her experiments, she found that when people are given good news about the future, they easily update their beliefs to be even more positive. However, when they're given bad news, such as a high statistical chance of getting a certain illness, they tend to ignore the information or assume it does not apply to their specific situation. This bias can be seen in many different parts of our lives, from the way we manage our health to the way we handle our money. For example, many people start a new business with a firm belief that they will succeed, even though they know that a high percentage of new businesses fail within the first few years. While this can lead to risky behavior, it also provides the necessary confidence to take chances and move forward in life, as a purely realistic view of the world might feel too discouraging to handle. On a biological level, the optimism bias is linked to the way our frontal lobes interact with deeper parts of the brain like the amygdala. By filtering out some of the negative possibilities, our mind reduces stress and anxiety, which helps us stay motivated and physically healthy. However, it is important to balance this natural hope with a bit of realistic planning to ensure that we are prepared for the challenges that might actually come our way. In the realm of long-term financial planning, the optimism bias can lead people to significantly underestimate the amount of money they will need for retirement. Many individuals believe they will be able to work much longer than they actually can, or they assume that their health will remain perfect, avoiding the high costs of medical care in later life. This bias creates a gap between reality and expectation, often resulting in a lack of urgency to start saving early. Because we view our future selves as lucky, we often prioritize spending in the present over the abstract needs of a future that we believe will somehow work itself out. This same mental shortcut affects how investors behave in the stock market. During a market boom, the optimism bias leads many to believe that the growth will continue indefinitely and that they personally will know exactly when to sell before a crash happens. This overconfidence can lead to taking on too much risk or ignoring warning signs that others are seeing. Even when a market downturn occurs, many investors maintain a belief that their specific portfolio is safer than the average, which can prevent them from making the necessary adjustments to protect their assets. When it comes to global issues like climate change, the optimism bias can lead to a phenomenon called environmental groupthink or collective denial. Many people acknowledge that the planet is warming and that natural disasters are becoming more frequent, but they often believe that their own specific town or home will be spared from the worst effects. This sense of personal immunity can reduce the motivation to adopt sustainable habits or support large-scale policy changes. If we believe the danger is something that happens to other people in other places, the psychological pressure to act in the present remains very low. Similarly, this bias influences how we perceive large-scale public health risks. During a pandemic or a local disease outbreak, many people continue to engage in risky social behaviors because they believe their own immune system is stronger than average or that they are simply less likely to catch the illness. This is not necessarily a lack of intelligence, but a biological mechanism designed to keep us from living in a constant state of fear. By understanding that our brains are naturally tuned to hope, we can consciously work to look at the data more objectively and make safer choices for ourselves and our communities. In the pursuit of competitive jobs and career choices, the optimism bias often leads individuals to believe they will reach the top of their field much faster than the average person. When choosing a career path, many people focus on the success stories of the top 1% while ignoring the high number of people who struggle in that same industry. This can be a positive force, as it provides the necessary ambition to pursue difficult goals like becoming a professional athlete, a famous artist, or a high-level executive. Without this bias, many would never take the initial risk to follow their dreams. However, this same bias can cause a phenomenon known as the planning fallacy in the workplace. This is when we underestimate the time, costs, and risks of a future project while overestimating the benefits. Even if we have failed to meet a deadline in the past, the optimism bias convinces us that this time will be different because we have a better plan or more experience. This leads to overcommitting to tasks and experiencing high levels of stress when the reality of the workload begins to catch up with our initial expectations. In our romantic expectations, the optimism bias is very visible in the way we view marriage and long-term partnerships. While most people are aware of the high divorce rates in modern society, almost every couple entering a marriage believes that their relationship is the exception to the rule. This belief is actually helpful in the beginning, as it fosters the deep trust and commitment needed to build a life together. By filtering out the possibility of failure, the brain allows us to invest fully in another person without being paralyzed by the fear of a potential breakup. When these romantic expectations are too high, the eventual reality of daily life and conflict can feel like a shock. Because the optimism bias created a perfect image of the future, any small problem can feel like a major failure. To maintain a healthy balance, it is useful to recognize that while hope is a powerful tool for starting a journey, a bit of realistic awareness helps us navigate the challenges that naturally occur. By accepting that every path has obstacles, we can move forward with a more grounded and resilient perspective on both our careers and our personal lives. The optimism bias has a profound effect on our physical health and how we respond to medical advice. Many people believe they are less likely than the average person to develop chronic illnesses like heart disease or lung cancer, even if they engage in risky behaviors like smoking or eating a poor diet. This sense of invulnerability can lead to a delay in seeking preventative care or following a doctor's recommendations. Because the brain filters out the negative possibilities, it becomes easy to tell ourselves that we have more time to change our habits later. When patients are given a diagnosis, the optimism bias can influence their recovery in both positive and negative ways. On the positive side, a high level of optimism is linked to lower stress levels and a stronger immune response, which can actually help the body heal faster. Patients who believe they will recover are often more motivated to participate in physical therapy and stay consistent with their medication. This internal drive acts as a psychological buffer against the pain and exhaustion that often come with long-term medical treatment. On the negative side, if a patient is too optimistic, they might ignore the serious nature of their condition and fail to make necessary lifestyle changes. They may believe that a single pill or a quick surgery will fix everything without them needing to adjust their daily routine. This can lead to a cycle of relapse because the underlying causes of the illness are never addressed. Finding a balance between a hopeful outlook and a realistic understanding of the medical data is the most effective way to ensure a long and healthy life. This bias also influences our belief in luck and superstition. Many people feel that they have a personal streak of good luck that protects them from the random nature of the world. We might carry a lucky object or perform a specific ritual before a big event because it gives us a sense of control over an unpredictable future. Even when we know that luck is just a matter of probability, the optimism bias makes us feel like the universe is slightly tilted in our favor, which reduces our anxiety and gives us the courage to keep trying even after a failure. The optimism bias significantly shapes our memory of the past through a process often called rosy retrospection. Our brains tend to filter out the mundane or negative aspects of past events while highlighting the positive moments. This is why many people remember their childhood or college years as being much happier and simpler than they actually were at the time. By polishing our history, the optimism bias helps us maintain a positive self-image and provides a sense of continuity and meaning in our lives. This distorted view of the past acts as a foundation for our future expectations. Because we remember our past successes more vividly than our failures, we develop a sense of mastery that encourages us to take on new challenges. If we perfectly remembered every moment of stress, boredom, or embarrassment, we might be too hesitant to try again. The brain effectively uses a filtered history to convince us that because things worked out before, they are guaranteed to work out even better next time. When it comes to the way we judge the intelligence and skills of our children, the optimism bias is exceptionally strong. Most parents believe that their children are more talented, smarter, and more likely to succeed than the average child. This is often referred to as the Lake Wobegon effect, where everyone believes their own family is above average. While this can lead to unrealistic pressure, It also provides children with a vital source of unconditional support and encouragement that is necessary for their emotional development. However, this biased perception can sometimes make it difficult for parents to accept objective feedback from teachers or coaches. If a parent is convinced that their child is a natural genius, they might view a low grade as a mistake by the school rather than an area where the child needs to improve. Balancing this natural parental pride with a realistic view of a child's unique strengths and weaknesses is key to helping them grow. By recognizing that our eyes are biased by love and hope, we can provide better guidance that is rooted in both support and reality. The optimism bias heavily influences our belief in the success of new technology and inventions. When a new gadget or a revolutionary scientific idea is announced, many people immediately imagine a future where that technology solves all our current problems. This collective optimism is what drives investment and excitement in fields like artificial intelligence, space travel, and clean energy. We tend to focus on the best-case scenarios of how these inventions will change our lives, while often ignoring the complex technical hurdles or the potential negative side effects that might arise. This bias is a key part of the innovation cycle. If inventors and engineers were perfectly realistic about the thousands of hours of failure and the high costs involved in creating something new, many would never start. The optimism bias provides a mental shield that allows a creator to believe their specific idea is the one that will finally work. This overconfidence is contagious, helping to convince others to provide the funding and support needed to turn a theoretical concept into a physical reality. When it comes to our perception of personal safety and crime rates, the optimism bias creates a gap between what we see in the news and how we feel about our own lives. Many people believe that crime is rising in the world at large, yet they feel that their own neighborhood is a safe bubble. This is because the brain separates general information from personal risk. We might watch a report about a local robbery and feel a brief moment of concern, but the optimism bias quickly restores our sense of security by telling us that we are smarter, more careful, or simply luckier than the victims we see on the screen. This sense of personal immunity is what allows us to go about our daily lives without being paralyzed by fear. However, it can also lead to a lack of preparation for rare but serious events. For instance, many people do not have a fire escape plan or an emergency kit because they simply do not believe a disaster will ever happen to their specific home. By acknowledging that our brains are naturally wired to feel safe, we can take small, practical steps to protect ourselves while still maintaining the positive outlook.